today's throwback, we're having a look at the Mattel DC Superheroes Clayface. Spot wanted to go back and have a look at this figure because it is one of my top 10 favorite figures of all time. It really is. Still to this day, it's one of my favorite figures of all time. So I thought it was fitting enough, and of course now with better camera and stuff like that, we wanted to go back, or I wanted to go back, and have a look at this figure. There hasn't really been a true good Clayface figure up to the point, and I think afterwards, this figure right here. Sure, of course you can look at the original animated series Batman figure, Batman Clayface figure from Kenner, which ultimately was just a dog toy. It wasn't literally a dog toy, but it was a toy that you could squeeze and it shot out a cannon, a little cannonball and stuff like that. Of course, DC Collectibles, at the time that we are watching this video, has not come out yet, but are going to be releasing a animated series Clayface, and I'm super excited for that. But in the meantime, I wanted to look at my favorite Clayface and one of my favorite figures of all time. We are going to be having a look at package-wise the sealed version of the figure, but I'm not going to open this one up. We will have a look at the other one that I have in my collection. But I wanted to show you guys what the original packaging would have looked like. This would have been under the DC Superheroes banner. Down below we've got Clayface. Also comes with a diorama with every figure. It does. Really does. On the side of the package, other figures available are Catwoman, the Joker, and Clayface. And on the back, a little scene there of some of the other characters available. A slightly misleading package also by the fact that the Catwoman here has her goggles off, which if you remember that figure, you could not remove the goggles, or if you could, a really recessed eye area would have been the end result. But you can collect them all. And we're looking at 2007, so this figure is about 9, almost 10 years old. It's hard to believe. Featuring bold, detailed sculpts for the ultimate in authenticity, SE Select Sculpt series from Mattel is a powerful line of collectible action figures. Each S3 figure is characterized by a classic look, unique sculpting, and incredible posability. Also advertising additional figures available August 2007. So Spot's going to take a break. Again, I'm not going to open this one. This one I'm going to keep sealed. But when we come back, though, we're going to get a better look at the Batman, or in this case, the Batman villain from DC Superheroes, Clayface. There's more anyway, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Just before we have a look at Clayface, I'm actually surprised I still have this in pretty good condition, but there is the diorama that comes included with the figures. I like these, but I will say though, if you have enough of these figures on display, imagining, if you will, just a series of these on your shelf. They take up a lot of space. Also, some figures, such as Clayface, for example, they hold the figure, there's a little bit of hair there, they hold the figure pretty good, but I have not really displayed Clayface on here just because it's cardboard. These little side areas never stay together. Again, I'm surprised I even got this actually to kind of stay together. It looks good, but especially for Clayface, he hides so much of what's behind him that it doesn't really warrant displaying him with the diorama. I get what they were going with. I appreciate what they were going with. But A, it just takes up a lot of space. It's cardboard, so it's the longevity of this isn't probably going to be that much there. It's okay. It is okay. Let's move the display out of the way. I'm sure one of these days I'll just probably get rid of the displays because, again, they're not really my thing. If anything, I'm just going to be displaying the figures as is. Speaking of figures as is, this, again, is a beautiful looking Clayface. By far the best, if you ask me, Clayface of all time. I've yet to really find a Clayface that equals and rivals this release. It is simply stunning. It is not perfect. In fact, the biggest issue I have with the figure is the fact that he's got the rubber arms. I just do not like the incorporating of rubber arms. Rubber will deteriorate over time, and I'm surprised actually this figure has held up as long as it has. Certainly also because it's wire framed. Eventually the wire may start peeking itself through. Hello, hi there. It might peek itself through the rubber cavity or the rubber exterior here. The rubber, I get what they were going with. They were trying to go with a more clay-like feel, you know, something that's a little more pliable that you could manipulate like Clayface himself. But sadly, I just don't, I like it, but I don't like it because it's just, I wish it was first of all, the plastic is close enough to the arms that it looks like it could be almost the same material. But again, like, I just don't like the material. Like, look at the side, if any indication here right now. Now, this will, again, continue to dry out. On the side, it looks like it's dried just a little bit, where you can see it's almost slightly off-colored from the rest of the body. This other side is not so bad. He also can't hold anything because he's got just nothing but rubbery fingers and rubbery hands. So that's a big detriment to this figure. If not for that, this would be a perfect figure. In fact, I think even when I used to do ratings, and I know I kind of just stopped doing ratings because it just didn't make much sense. Like, how could you rate one thing a 10, one thing a 7? But I think even at the time that I recorded the first video so many years ago, I think I actually rated this figure a 10. And I still think it holds up as a 10, possibly even a 9, 9.5. But what kills it for me, though, is the arms. Now, the figure was released individually, as you see in hand right now. No fooling, it's in my hand right now. It was also released in a 2-pack, which also included a classic blue outfit Batman, blue cowled Batman, that had mud all over his body. Now, originally, and I even mentioned this in the review, and people, of course, have said, well, no, that's not the case. But originally, that Clayface was going to have a change of arms. Mattel even announced that that 2-pack was going to feature plastic arms, as opposed to the rubber that you see right here. That would have been all the more reason I would have bought that figure. Even though I already had the figure, I would have bought him. I would have bought 2 or 3 of those because it had the plastic limbs. That would have been a smarter choice to go with, but ultimately what they ended up doing, Mattel just simply slapped this figure back in the package along with Batman and still had the same rubber arms. Mileage may vary. Opinions certainly will vary, but I would love to have seen what a plastic version of this guy would have been. Anyways, let's have a look at his face and we'll kind of work our way down to his body. Some would say very inspired by the original classic Batman animated series, just from the design aesthetics of the way he looks. He just looks absolutely stunning. I would not say necessarily inspired at all by comics, of course, because he had the 4 Clayface in the comics. None of them really fit this bill, that this is definitely more so something we saw in the original animated series. The face is very good. More of a harder plastic. Harder plastic for, well, the torso is harder plastic. The head is plastic. The legs are plastic. But then like little dividing areas such as this torso piece here is a more denser rubber than the arms. And like then the lower torso has almost a skirt of rubber, not as pliable as the arms, but about the same quality as the torso. The multiple layers and folds that they put into this, to this day still, a superposable figure, a super sculpted figure, it still holds out as really one of the best figures that Mattel released under their DC superheroes, or even for that matter, their eventual DC Universe figures. This figure still trumps all of them. There's the back of it right there. Again, like this is more of a softer plastic. I love the short, again, this is what reads animated series for me, is the very short, stumpy legs, very broad torso. You know what, let's go back to his face. I could probably spend 20, 30, maybe an hour looking at this figure. He's got more yellow eyes, a lighter color of yellow teeth, no real indication of nose, and then he's got this, I like how they did this with the mouth. The mouth kind of opens on the one side, somewhat more of a, I guess, a big gaping jaw, but I love how it opens up to the side and then it has a line that goes all the way up and all the way to the back. In fact, it almost looks like it is just an appliance, like a secondary piece that they've added over top of it. He does have posability as well, so despite the fact that it may look like it doesn't move at all, his head does still rotate. Normally the colorings, I guess, could be jarring because some of the colorings don't quite match. Like the brown here doesn't quite match the color of the mid-torso, which doesn't quite match the area of the lower cut of the low torso area, which doesn't match then the waist. The waist seems to match this area, and then the legs are about the same color as that. So normally the colors would be like, ooh, colors don't quite match, but because it's a Clayface character, you can kind of justify the fact that, well, he is comprised of clay after all, that there would make some sense as to why the colorings would change as they are. I do notice though that I've got a little bit of like paint that's been removed from the back there, which is a bit of a shame. All the little holes in the rubbery arms again. For your posability options, in the way of articulation on this guy, his head is on a ball joint. It guess technically could rotate all the way around, but it does get a little stuck when you start rotating it to the sides. So probably about that is as far as you're going to go with the figure, and to about there. He does have a upper torso swivel, but he does have a crunch in the lower or mid torso area. He also has a swivel in the waist. I think he has a swivel in the waist. No, he actually doesn't. I thought he did. Just maybe over time. Yeah, there's a cut right there. I guess over time, just my figure has started to seize up. Sometimes that does happen when you get figures and you've had them on display in kind of one pose for a while. The posability, some areas do start locking up on you. The legs hinge out, the little short, stumpy legs. They also go forward and back. And luckily, this area of the rubber kind of gets a little, well, it wouldn't normally be in the way, but at least it stays out of the way because it's more pliable. He does have a bend at the knee, also rotates at the lower leg. He has a rotation on the lower, or the foot area, which also allows a pivot back and forth. Of course, we've also looked at the arms. The arms hinge out. They hinge out. I thought actually it had broken something, but it's just a little, again, rubbery. They do rotate, but you have to be very careful rotating them, just because you don't want to get anything real snagged. They do sort of hinge out, but a lot of the posability relies on the frame, that inner frame, which I guess you can get a little bit more creative with the way that it's displayed. You could be like, Batman! Which I guess that's what Clayface sounds like in Spot's world. Also something too, he is an incredible magnet to hair and debris. Everything wants to stick to his rubber arms. But just a stunning, still to this day, a stunning figure. And we're looking at almost 10 years ago that this guy was released. He is absolutely jaw-dropping. Of course, I'm a sucker for Clayface. He is one of my favorite Batman villains. I had to get this guy when he first came out. He would be the type of figure I would almost buy another one. I do have one sealed. I would even buy another one after that, or I'd get the one that came with the Batman and just keep that sealed. If you are a fan of Clayface, and you're a fan of figures just in general, do yourself a favor, pick this guy up. He can be found fairly reasonable, surprisingly. He's not the prices that some of the superhero figures like Catwoman, those are expensive. Clayface has stayed relatively affordable, and a lot of it can be chalked up to the fact that he was released with the Batman. That kind of offsets the limited availabilities maybe of getting the singular card. I guess if anything, you could get the same, because he is the same figure, get the one that came with the Batman. They had more mass-produced. I remember still even seeing a ton of them at Toys R Us. I really should have picked up one. I don't know what I was thinking. But still, a stellar figure. One of my favorite figures in my collection by far. I would say he's even within the top... I would say he's even in the top 3 of my favorite figures in my collection. And I definitely had to give this guy another video. Today's throwback, we were having a look once again at the DC superheroes Clayface. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more throwbacks and other videos heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.